And speaking of growth, whenever you feel comfortable, settle into a chair, letting your whole body soften, becoming stable as though you have roots planted firmly into the ground. And as any good gardener knows, a stable root structure, a plant that feels secure in the ground, that's not sifting and too loose, has more ability to lengthen upward. Not because it pushes upward, but because it emphasizes this softening down and through into the ground. And so the way we extend our roots is by letting go. We soften through our body. We let the weight release through and then out of the body. And as you release the weight out of the body, suddenly there's this capacity to be light and to soften upward, so that our natural structure, which is often compressed, is allowed to expand, to decompress, to make more space within it, in all directions, including, of course, up. When the spine expands, it expands through and upward. The crown of the head is released up, not because we push up, that would be uprooting yourself, but because it's released up, because we have continued to feed our roots through this settling and comfortable release. Similarly with your shoulders, and the way that a young seedling sometimes can come up and it's wrapped and it slowly unfurls. And there's this quality of this softening long and through to the fingertips, to the toes. Because when the shoulder decompresses, it decompresses outward. As you manage to make more space in your abdomen and within your chest, through this letting go, notice how there's also more room for the breath. Just as usual, we don't force the breath in and out. The breath naturally fills the space, like water flowing into a space. As that space expands, which direction does it expand? Where is it opening to and through? And where could you let go a little bit more to make that expansion even more expressive, more comfortable? Every time you exhale, your whole body softens and releases, which again is the same thing as saying your spine lengthens because of the natural expansion that happens as we let go. So an exhalation can possibly, instead of deflating you, it actually makes you a little bit taller. And then as you inhale and your abdomen expands and everything is released through along the inside, there's this sense of great stillness. And your body makes a little bit more space inside, takes up a little bit more space on the outside. As you release your glutes and your hips, your thighs, your lower legs, they're allowed to release and expand outward and through to rest even more comfortably on the ground. So as your hips and legs soften, sometimes you have to readjust your feet because your body has changed a little bit. Just a few more breaths, settling into this stillness and ease. And when you feel ready, you can warm up your palms, softening your hands, softening your wrists and forearms. Glad you made it. Allowing the warmth of the palms to awaken the very crown of the head. Remember, we're continuing to allow this sense of openness and expansion through your structure, through this release. So you don't want to push down on your head in a way that crimps or compresses. There are practices where we engage with the body that way to increase its ability, its elasticity. But today we're just softening that point on the top of the head in both directions. Continuing to soften your shoulders, soften your breath. As you come to the back of your head, avoid, for those of you who have learned about softening the shoulder, just sort of bringing your hand up and compressing your shoulder to push against your head. Lengthen your arm, as we are with our whole body, and then lengthen around the circle, always expanding outward until the hand is on the back of the head. For those of you that have worked with the snake and turtle Qigong set, we have that movement black snake wrapping around a tree, and that helps with this lengthening and softening of the shoulder around the circle. Again, around the circle to get to the back of the neck, so that you're never compressing and tightening the shoulder or constantly lengthening around. Lengthening around the circle. I know that those kinds of Qigong qualities are not the emphasis of this set, but it's always worth making use of good principles to get the best effect from your practice. And as usual, I'd like to welcome our newest visitors, the people that haven't learned what this set is quite yet. Please do check down below for a link that will take you to an introductory practice. I see a lot of people finally watching that, which is wonderful. I know a lot of people come and they're very confused by what they're watching, and that video will explain what we're doing so you can get the best impact to the practice. This live practice will end, there's, including this one, only 3 more classes left. And so probably better to wait to do the full sequence once I publish it on YouTube, or join me on Patreon where the videos are already hiding. And again, just for sake of discussion here, I could create this movement and shorten my body, tighten my neck to draw my hands to my face, or I can soften my shoulder. You can see my arm lengthening, going around the circle to warm my eyes. Please continue allowing this quality of lengthening and disinhibiting the flow of the body. Your shoulders sinking down the back. Continue lengthening your shoulders, softening the elbows away from the shoulder, the wrists away from the elbows. lengthening around the circle rather than shortening your ears and your shoulders and your arms. Remember that during these last few days, we're setting aside extra time for this closing and settling practice. So please do take your time. Your whole body softens, your awareness sinks and settles gently without forcing it. If possible, into that space between the navel and the spine, or at least into that space just inside the navel, maybe behind the navel a bit. Master ZhiCheng, our Daoist master, is constantly teaching various retreats of different lengths, long retreats, very short retreats, and of all different varieties and subjects, from literary to martial. But in every single retreat, there is one practice that is held in common. Every morning and every night, everyone gets together to sit and meditate in this middle Dantian space. And it underscores just how important of a practice it is. And so here we're only doing it for a few minutes at a time rather than hours at a time. But please do take that time, even in these small bites, and generate the interest in that experience of sinking and settling, so that your awareness can condense and you can find just what makes this practice so magical. Right?
Radio.
And even though I'm rationing out more time specifically for those quiet sitting practices during this session, again, if there's an area that you need particular attention, your body just has special difficulty with, or today is asking for you to spend more time with it, please do listen to that. large intestine 4, the joining valleys. This point has probably become the most popular in the world for acupressure over the years. Yeah, just the most common knowledge. Mostly, I think, because it's famous for treating frontal headaches.
That makes sense, yeah. And it's so easily accessible and memorable.
So people just, it's, for some reason, it's gotten good media attention, at least in the cultures where I grew up. And so I'm glad that people have learned about it. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe like pointing on the top of the shoulder or something is the most famous because people have tight shoulders. But when they're trying to push on a point that doesn't hurt to create an effect somewhere else, I'd imagine that this is the most popular. People are finally learning about how things relate together. It's pretty cool.
Neat.
Yeah, I'm really happy about it. And again, a reminder to soften your shoulder as you reach up as best you can, rather than lifting and tightening your shoulder. It goes, instead of going forward, it goes the other direction, underneath. Just a reminder to continue settling into a good upright posture, weight resting just in front of the sitting bones, crown of your head releasing up as best you can. And I know that, especially during times when our bodies are doing strange things that we're not used to, it can be difficult to find a comfortable position. And so in that case, of course, all we can do is our best. But do keep in mind these principles of decompressing the neck, decompressing the shoulders, settling and releasing your hips, these things that no matter what our body is doing to us at the moment, we can always find a way to let go. We can let go of our breath as best we can. We can soften our mind so that it's constantly settling back into the present moment. These are skills that no matter what our body is doing to us at the moment, we always have the chance to show it some love, help it return to a bit more normalcy. letting go of your breath, making space for comfortable inhalation and exhalation. Again, even with the arm that travels up, the shoulder sinks. It goes around the circle. You're lengthening your arm. Don't go up your arm by shortening and pulling all of this in. Instead, go around to lengthen the arm so that the elbow softens away from the shoulder. The shoulder sinks down the back. The neck is released long. Your chest is allowed to stay soft as best you can. And please go slow if this is uncomfortable or if you have sensitive breast tissue right now. I know sometimes that can make this kind of movement uncomfortable. And so instead, just be gentle and emphasize this quality of releasing down to the hands. Your awareness sinking into that space between the navel and the spine, the middle danxian. Like dropping a stone into water, and it naturally settles and settles through the medium and it sinks. And of course, because there's a sinking happening, that continues to allow the crown of the head to float upward, decompressing the spine. Remember that when your mind wanders off, your only job is to release your grip around the distraction, around the thought, and allow your awareness to sink back down on its own. people tend to live entirely inside their thoughts and their preconceptions and their ideas, their imagination. They're not embodied at all. And so one of the great gifts of this set is that it gets us in touch with our physicality. It consistently draws our awareness into the body, to make it easier to settle. Because when you are embodied, your awareness is instantly settled, especially if you are allowing your awareness to rest in the appropriate locations. Because the body is always right now, which is a nice thing. Allowing your touch and your awareness to be gentle and friendly. Continually coming back. Leaving behind your mind, your thoughts, your concerns. Settling into the moment over and over. Allowing your awareness to soak into that space between the skin and the muscle. That thin, alive layer just beneath the surface. Sinking down, consolidating. Shoulders are soft. Even here at the top, your elbows are not moving up, they're moving out, away from your shoulders, that way. That will make more space so that your arms can circle around. Continuing to soften your hands, soften your wrists, around the elbow, your shoulder, your neck. If you're treating this as an opportunity to release your shoulder blade and soften all through here, this can be a fantastic Qigong practice just by itself for softening from here out, for releasing your waist and your breath. Again, awareness settling into that middle dantian space. If you are someone who is menstruating or happens to be pregnant, and perhaps it feels odd to place your awareness here, you can let your awareness sink into the solar plexus instead, where we were working earlier. Sometimes that can be an easier place to consolidate, but I don't have any personal experience of this, so you have to follow your own wisdom, your own guidance. Just another few moments, continually returning your awareness, settling as best you can into this space. And again, after these 100 days, I'm hoping that it's much clearer inside you, this feeling of settling and sinking, storing your energy, allowing your awareness to rest. Continuing to soften from the shoulders to the hands. As your lower back softens, releasing your breath, allowing it to expand as well into that space that has previously been too contracted to breathe through. Move as slow or as quickly as you'd like. Settling your weight into the space in front of the hips. Crown of the head continuing to float upward. These points are here. If you have points that need extra attention, of course, please do take the time. I'm glad you like those boots so much.
They're so comfortable.
Mel has discovered a love of Ugg boots. Remember that as you lean forward to hinge, don't collapse or round. Continue to allow the spine to lengthen as though sprouting like a plant in the garden. Resting comfortably. Being very gentle. That gentleness and willingness to listen allows you to find these more quiet qualities, like this ability to simply soften your body and to allow it to hold itself up. It doesn't really feel like anything at first, and so it's hard to find. It's hard to trust that you can simply let go, and your body will, after a little bit, start to expand and take over. But just knowing that it's possible sometimes creates the space for that skill to cultivate. Gallbladder 34, spleen 9. Yesterday there was a quality that ZhiCheng Shifu was reminding us about, and this is how he phrased it. He said, so if I let my arms hang, what takes more energy, more work? Sitting like this or sitting like this? This one, right? How about here? What takes more work, this position or this position? Clearly a little bit more difficult. This position or this position? Each one, of course, can require a little bit more energy to support that angle just because gravity is moving this way. And so when you are moving down, that's a letting go. So it can have, in a sense, be effortless. So in this direction, it can feel relatively effortless. And to come back up, again, which position requires more? This position or this position? This position or this position? And people approach the idea wrong. They think that to get from here back into the upright position requires energy. You have to push yourself up. But really all you're doing is you are going from the more difficult position to the less difficult position to a slightly less difficult position. It gets easier and easier. So actually all you're doing is you're releasing that which is holding you up. If you can find that quality of letting go and letting go and letting go so that it stands you up, then both directions are effortless. Going down because you're going with gravity, and coming back up because you're letting go of all of the stuff that was moving you in that position in the first place. They're just two different kinds of letting go. And so even as we make these knee circles, if you decide to move your body up and down this way, this is a softening forward, but this is also a softening as you come back up. If when you come back up, you're pulling with your upper back, then you'll never be able to find it because you're just adding so much tension that you can't even feel the possibility of letting everything fall down to stand you up, like that drinking bird that I was showing. Effortless in both directions.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I notice for me it's easier to let go moving down
Mm-hmm.
and moving up in a similar way that I experience breathing. Like the exhale tends to be easier, or it's easier to let go during the exhale than during the inhale. And I wonder if that's in part because of my relationship to gravity, like the way I'm thinking about gravity.
It could be, yeah, how you've shaped it. Some of the difficulty also is that the pathway going down and the pathway coming up are not the same. So like if I put my arm out, if I try to come back along the same pathway, all it does is shorten it. But if I go out with my arm and then I soften all the way around the circle and then I come back, it's a different pathway.
Yeah.
And so my body can find that direction. So it's the same thing here as I lean forward. This is one pathway to lengthen and lean forward. And there's another pathway to soften through the body to continue lengthening to sit back up. But if people go down and then they try to come up along the same pathway, they just run into themselves. So people do that with the breath. People do that with everything. It's also one of the ways to diagnose lung problems or kidney problems in Chinese medicine. The kidney controls the inhalation. So when the kidneys tend to be weakened, it can be a little bit more effort to feel like you're inhaling.
Is it accurate to say, like, the image that comes to mind is kind of the difference between a linear pathway and a round pathway? Like, instead of thinking it is up and down, kind of along that same y-axis, so to speak, what we're actually doing is we're going down and then we're waiting for the release, waiting for the turnover, as ZhiCheng says, such that like the movement, the internal movement starts to feel like a circle.
That's right. It is that pathway too. I just try not to point it out because people overdo that. Continuing to soften your body into this upright position. When I was a kid, I had a little punching bag, a little clown that was heavy on the bottom. It was inflatable.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. My dad put me in the martial arts when I was, 5 or something. He started teaching me. And I can't even remember it. But I remember that little punching bag. And it's that same quality that it doesn't take any energy for it to stand back up because everything just falls down.
That's a really good image for it.
I hardly remember that time at all in my life, but I remember that clown.
Yeah, it's funny. Those were like ubiquitous in the neighborhoods I grew up in.
Really?
Yeah, like I remember I haven't thought about them in years, but it's one of those core memories unlocked.
Remember, if you try to sit like I'm doing and you have tight hips, that might make you tend to round your back out because this angle can get too sharp. And so as you become more flexible, your hip can bend and your back can stay straight. But if you need to, put your leg at a lower height or sit a little bit differently until your hips get more relaxed so that you can draw your leg up like this. But you do not need to copy my shape and positioning. This is just how it's working for me today in front of the camera. And if you found great alternative postures that work for you in your special circumstances, and you feel like sharing them, taking a photo or a video, send to my email, and I'd love to learn alternatives that can work for different body types, different phases of life, different needs. That way I can continue recommending them to other people. I'm always looking to learn. Did I leave that little thing downstairs?
Oh, yeah, let me grab it. I know where it is.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just sit on the ground. I only use it so that people don't copy me and sit on the ground. Getting nice and comfy as best you can. Again, if this angle is too much for you, then try sitting up on something. That will help to change this angle, make it a little bit easier for you to open this spot on your back and your hips. As you go forward, avoid gripping with your thighs here. Lengthening, sprouting like that plant in the garden, and your legs lengthening that way. If you notice yourself gripping your jaw or holding your breath, tightening your hands, tightening your mind, then just let go a little bit. Not necessary. Oh, thank you. Unless you're going to use it. Oh. Thank you. So sitting on something like this, raising you up, would make it easier for you to soften this angle here if your hips and back are tight. Make sure that your feet are opening around the center. You're not just closing your toes, but you're trying to round the center of your feet. Continue lengthening your spine, both directions, all the way up and all the way forward. Crown of the head floats away from the shoulders. Your neck is soft. Your legs are released. Your breath is easy. Don't grip. Turning from your navel, rather than twisting your chest and shoulders, let your waist turn. It's okay for you to move the rest of your spine, but you want the movement to at least be incorporating your waist as best you can. And just softening your spine a bit. Remember that we will click our tongues, click our teeth, circle the tongue on the outside of the teeth as well as the inside of the teeth, both directions for all of that. Gathering the saliva and then swallowing the saliva down. If you have a larger amount of saliva, you can swallow it 3 times. But each time you feel as though you can track the path of the movement of the saliva, as though it sinks and showers down through your organs and rests in that space again, behind the navel. And then let's just hang out there for several minutes if you can, before lying down. But please do avoid generating tension. And at some point, whenever you feel settled, as though your chi has gathered into that middle space, and if you'd like to, you're welcome to lay down for a little bit. Let your body get released and comfortable. Allowing everything to soften toward the ground. Put something beneath your knees if you need to, or your back, or your elbows, or your head. Whatever it is that helps you release your weight to the ground. Allowing your awareness to be quiet and perhaps to spread out through your body. Resting comfortably for as long as you'd like. And at some point, rolling onto your side, back into a seated position. Being especially gentle with your newly relaxed joints. And again, you can allow your awareness to accumulate in that middle dantian space. And as usual, to slowly spread out through your body from that point. And to allow your awareness to start to include the space and the people around you, while maintaining that sense of settled calm in the center. Thank you, everybody. Pretty fun class. If there's any questions, feel free to ask.
This is day 98.
98,
Oh my
only
gosh.
2 more to go.
Wow.
2 more to go. And I intend to create a few more videos and classes for this series before I put it all together as a collection up on YouTube for everybody. And so if people have ideas, you can let me know. Thanks, Steph. It's lovely having you both with us. You're doing great, doing all the things you need. Just keep relaxing, keep sending that message of peace and unconditional love and friendliness to all the little people inside. I think that message is one of those that really shapes us in that beginning time. Okay. Enjoy your practice. Enjoy a lovely spring day.